We'll go ahead and call the meeting back to order. You ready? Okay. Jumping back up to item 13 on the agenda is receive update from committee tasked with obtaining information on biofuel plant project. Mr. Chamberlain?
I want to thank Bob Dawkins and all of the people that worked on the plant task team. Dan Barnes, Bill Cannell, Craig Wheely, Larry Whittlesey, and the Mayor Richards of Groveton was added. I've heard nothing but good comments about the work you've done, and at this point we'll turn it over to Bob Dawkins, who is sort of the interim chair, I guess, of that committee. Mr. Dawkins.
Thank you, Commissioners. I'll try to speak up so those in the back can hear what I'm saying. Just 10-second background. We're the committee that the Commissioners Court appointed to have some initial meetings with SR20. I used to call it SR20, but I have been corrected. Is it SR20? Okay, I think I got it now. Our format today, I've handed out each of y'all a list of our team members, that sheet that you've seen before on the SR20 holdings, what their project overview is, and also a proposed transaction outline. We're going to cover each of those at this brief presentation, but I'm going to ask, when we had our initial meeting, I was just a member, and the committee elected me chairman, which I appreciate that. But I'm going to ask each one of them and come up and say just a few words and make some brief statements about their area of specialty in these meetings with SR20. I'm going to start with Craig Whaley with Meridian Forestry. Craig?
Good morning.
Good morning.
I appreciate the opportunity to be on this committee. And my part of the project, I was tasked with basically looking at the resource available, the wood resource that we have in principally Trinity County and obviously to some extent the surrounding counties. And I hope that I was able to provide some information to them that demonstrated that we have more than enough feedstock in the immediate area within a 30-mile radius, we feel, to accommodate their needs. And lastly, I would just, as I represent about 135,000 acres of client property and obviously loggers and other secondary and tertiary customers, we would be very anxious and just welcome another opportunity to sell wood here in the surrounding area. So on behalf of those people, I would just hope that we can move forward with this project. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any questions?
Thank you, Craig.
Thank you very much, Craig. I'm going to call on Larry Whittlesey next, a timber buyer.
Good morning.
Morning.
I work for a company called Prime Acres Management that's based out of Woodville, Texas. And the company that we have about 10 different logging crews along with 2 different in-woods chippers, of which we're using one of those chippers right now. Kind of is not wide open because we don't have a place to haul the chips right now. I mean, just don't have an opportunity. Now we have the other chipper parked up at the shop, which we would be glad to put to work. And so, being that said, I'd have to echo that the same thing that Craig said as far as the feedstock. We have it here in East Texas, and we could probably handle half of y'all's production of what you need right now, and we could up that. So I don't see a problem with the feedstock.
Thank you, Larry.
Thank you, Larry.
Appreciate that, Larry. Thank you. Next, I'm going to call on the Mayor of Groveton, Byron Richards.
Mayor?
Regarding the city's part in this, I've been able to visit with our engineer and those individuals that are responsible for the management of our water and wastewater systems, also with additional conversations with SR20. I feel very confident at this point that this is going to be a very easy transaction for the city and the company to that we be able to provide the services that they require. It just seems like it's a situation that was just made available that's going to be very easy to accomplish what we need to accomplish for them. Basically, if you have any questions,
Anything?
okay. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you, Mayor. We appreciate that. Next, I'm going to call on Mr. Barnes, Dan Barnes. He's a timber property owner.
I guess I represent a group that actually owns most of the timber land in the county. Most people think it's the companies or the government, but it's actually small landowners. And I've been active in the Texas Forestry Association for about 25 years, and I've checked with people. I'm conversant with what's going on. Some of us are very concerned about where forestry is going in Texas. One indicator is that there's been a decline in the acreage planted over about the last 10 years, and that's not a good sign for the region. And of course, with the fires we had a couple of years ago, Trinity County took a real hit on what we'd consider feedstock, because a lot of that was small timber that these people could use. The incentives to spend the money and the time. Timber growers are kind of a special breed, and not everybody can do it can even see it as an investment. So they don't need any disincentives to manage and grow timber, invest in it. And I've done some checking on where I can with the people I know, and I don't see any negatives relative to this company. In fact, I think the impact is going to be more regional than it is going to be county. It's going to be sort of rising tide lifts all ships, Polk, Houston, Trinity, even Angelina County. So I just hope we can work this out. Given where they're going to market their stuff, Trinity County makes sense. We're kind of in the middle of nowhere, but we're close to Houston. So I think it'd probably be a good fit for them, and that there's not going to be a lot of pressure on them to urbanize around them. So I hope we can work this out. But again, I've checked with the Texas Forestry Association and Lufkin, and have gotten no negative feedback from them. So as far as I'm concerned, this is a good deal.
Very good. Thank you, Mr. Barnes.
Thank you, Mr. Barnes. Our last committee member is Bill Cannell. Mr. Cannell with the First National Bank of Trinity. Mr. Cannell?
As far as economic development, of course, the bank is certainly interested in that, and our board and everyone that I've talked to on our end of the county in Trinity is certainly for this project. And so on behalf of them, we're looking forward to moving forward with it. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Cannell. Appreciate those comments. Gentlemen, I'm going to attempt to be very brief about this proposed transaction outline, the financing of it. The shortening it up, what SR20 is requesting, and I agree with it, they're looking to form, for a better term right now, we're just going to call it a public-private partnership. What will actually happen is the county will form a corporation, just a regular corporation. The county will then, under the veil of that corporation, they will ultimately, and I'm going to talk like this is going to be successful, they'll ultimately issue bonds, and then the county will purchase the equipment with the bonds. Then the county will lease the equipment to SR20. Have I got that pretty much right so far? Okay. This whole process, and we need to keep emphasizing over and over and over, that we are going to hire, and I say we, I'm talking about the county. I consider myself part of the county. But the county is going to hire their own attorneys. There are attorneys that specialize in this type of corporations and this type of financing. There will be no upfront money out of the county's budget. Will not cost us a thing. And what happens is, out of the revenue proceeds, the attorneys that we hire, and we'll have a list of firms. I'm familiar with one in Waco that did a good job, but they will be paid on a contingent fee basis. There will be no money up front for the county. When the bonds are issued, we don't know, and the reason they want the SR20 wants the public-private partnership, this gives them more credibility with investors and also more credibility with this feasibility study that probably will take about a year. But also it gives them some latitude when they go to issuing the bonds and doing the financing on the type of bonds that they want. But they will be under the shield of revenue bonds. The county will never have any obligation or any liability on the plant or the issuing of the bonds. We will not put our taxpayers at risk, period. So everything will, and we got to look at the negative too. If the plant were to go bankrupt 10 years from now and there was still $100 million in bonds outstanding, no one and the bondholders will not be looking to the county to pay a dollar. Saying it over and over and over. No liability, no upfront money. Almost all of this is contingent fee based. Process will be something like, now as I understand it, the way we were formed, our committee will be dissolving at the end of this meeting because we've made our report, assuming y'all adopt we'll be dissolved one way or the other, whether you adopt the resolution to go forward or not. Then they'll start taking over, and of course y'all have heard this before. They've got to go through the feasibility study. They got to go through the permitting process. I understand there's still 2 to 3 sites that they're looking at. They'll have to determine which site they want and then see about acquiring that site before they can even start the permitting process. Now, there's one individual that whose name is not on this committee list, and he actually said he didn't want to be on the committee, but the committee did make him our site coordinator. And I want to mention our former district judge and district attorney, Joned Dean. Mr. Dean's here. I would encourage, he has spent countless days. I know he's taken a couple of members of SR20 around and looked at various sites, and he spent a lot of time in coordinating getting them here. I would encourage the Commissioners Court in this, and if we go forward this committee, that y'all would keep Mr. Dean as the site coordinator and let him follow up and finish that. So I think that's all of the comments I have, other than I can't say enough about the committee members and their input. They totally exceeded every expectation that I had. Very hardworking, took it very serious, and it was a pleasure to get to know some of these people a little better that I'd only met in the past. Any questions, gentlemen?
I got one.
Okay.
I've heard you say 3 or 4 times the county's not going to be responsible, the taxpayers are not going to be responsible, but you said that the county would hire this set of lawyers and they would be paid on a continuance basis. If the company was to go bankrupt or whatever in the middle of it, we still wouldn't be liable?
Yes, that's correct. We will still not be liable.
Okay. Well, I'm behind it 100% then.
Okay, very good.
Contingent fee, lawyers is usually coming out of something corpus. Is the contingent fee going to be paid out of the bond revenue?
Yes, sir. It's my understanding. Excuse me. Oh, yeah.
Proceeds from the sale of bonds.
What we're going to do, and I haven't introduced these gentlemen yet, because I'm going to let them introduce themselves and maybe address the Commissioners Court briefly. I've met them, enjoyed working with them, know all of them. They're great guys, and we're proud to be working with a group like this. So I'll let them maybe follow up on that if you have any more specific questions. I'm talking in terms of generalities. Okay. If there's nothing else, any other questions? I'll turn it over to whoever. Okay. Mr. Youngblood.
Thank you. Good morning. For the record, I'm Hull Youngblood. I'm the attorney for SR20. It's good to see everybody again. We had a really good meeting the other day, and I'm glad with the committee. Now we're glad to be back here. With regard to the transaction, I just want to, I know you've heard me say this before, this is not a new method of funding. This is something that it's called project revenue bonds, tax-exempt, non-recourse revenue bonds, and they have been used for decades. I don't want you to think we cooked this up in a laboratory last night. It has been done over and over and over. This is a unique application to a biofuel plant. I'll agree with that. But the actual documentation and the methodology and the people that buy the bonds and the lawyers that work on a contingent fee and the engineers, etc., they've all been through this process before, and this transaction process. Very, very common transaction plan. Also here, my co-counsel, Harold Kennemer. You're kind of tired of seeing his face around town. He and I are working together. And the other guy I want you to hear from is the president of SR20, and that's Andre Thomas.
Thank you very much for inviting me. I really appreciate the courts taking an opportunity to look at this project. I thank the action team, all their efforts. We had an opportunity to interact with them. What we've been able to determine is there's ample feedstock, and that is one of the key requirements when we're looking at a site. I guess within a 30-mile radius, I believe there's 4 times the volume that we require for one of our sites. But, you know, there are things that we'll look at because there are different government programs that are out there, such as many of you, renewable identification numbers. There's the current fuel manufacturers have to produce fuel. So what we're looking at is how we harvest that feedstock. And that's something we'll do in the due diligence. I know the water came up. For this site, we will evaluate. There's a matter of testing we have to do on the water, testing on the wood stock, just to confirm what our requirements are going to be. But I truly appreciate, SR20 appreciates, and unfortunately my other team members could not be here today. They're presenting at Clemson University this week to the Tire or the Rubber Manufacturer Association. So they want to send their regards. Any questions for me?
Any questions from the court?
Excuse me?
So I was asking if there's any questions from the court. So, thank you. Thank you. Is that all y'all have? That's it? Okay. I was going to say that's actually short for you, Hull. Yeah. All right. With that, I appreciate the presentation on Bob's behalf and the committee and representatives from SR20. And with that, we will move into item 14, which is discuss an act on resolution regarding statement of interest in pursuing biofuel project in Trinity County. Y'all have a copy of that.
Like I've already said, Judge, I think this is the greatest thing that could happen for Trinity County. Put us on the map. It'll put a lot of people to work, and it's not obligation to the taxpayers. So with that being said, I make a motion we pass it.
Second.
Judge, let me add, and I'm so glad that we got cameras here today, because an old judge told me a long time ago, and it wasn't Judge Dean, that you could hear anything in Trinity County but money rattling and bacon frying. But after our last meeting, there was a little misconception around the community that the court, all of the court wasn't behind this, but I didn't get that. I don't think it was in the minutes anywhere, and I think as it stands, this whole court is for any kind of project that'll come in here and benefit our community.
Most definitely.
And I just want to make that record, especially since we got cameras here, because a lot of times what you say don't always get back to what you actually said, but if you got it on tape, well, you sure knows it then. But I think our whole court is behind this.
Yes, sir. I think so. Have a motion from Commissioner Smith, seconded by Commissioner Worsham. So move forward with this resolution. Any more discussion?
I have a couple of points, Judge, if I may. Excuse me. Again, thanks to Bob Dawkins and the committee. When I passed the basketball to Mr. Dawkins, I thought it was going to be a permanent thing. I just read this resolution. It says Rich Chamberlain is now the committee chair. I have got to work on my basketball skills because I got the ball back for some reason, and Lord knows I got plenty on my plate. I'm happy to serve in that regard, however, because I too believe that this is an important project for the county. I'm pleased to be working with Mr. Smith as well. We will go forward and do the work that's required, assuming that the court passes this resolution.
Thank you, Mr. Chamberlain. Anybody else? If not, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Hearing none, passes by majority vote. Or unanimous vote, rather. Anybody have anything else to add on the behalf of this project?
I just want to thank the committee for voting on the project and moving forward. One of the things I'd like to say, there's a lot of due diligence that's going to happen. We will be interacting with you quite regularly as well.
Very good. Appreciate it. Appreciate y'all coming.
Could you give us any kind of time frame? I know you have to go out for permits and all this, and you said it would take about a year. How long will it take to actually, once you purchase the property and that type of deal?
Commissioner, that was the one question I didn't want you to ask.
Well, I usually ask those kind of questions.
That is the most nebulous question. Give us some time to do a little more due diligence on sites, on feedstock, on all the other things. And to, once we know more about those local factors, we'll know more about the permitting process, and then we can give you a better.
No problem.
Please. And thank you for asking the question.
Yeah.
For one time, we have to have an address, and before we can apply for a permit from the TCEQ. And in order to have an address, we have to do this due diligence and pick out a site and that type of thing. So it's an ongoing process, but we'd like to move forward as fast as we're able to, and I'm sure you would too.
Well, we're looking forward to it, so.
Look forward to the partnership with y'all. So, if nobody has anything else, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So move.
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Smith, seconded by Commissioner Brown to adjourn. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
We stand adjourned.